Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Autodesk Developer Summit. Super happy to see such a full room of all of you. A couple of things before we begin. We will have a Q&A segment at the end of the presentation, so if you have any questions, just remember them and hold them for the end. There's 2 mics in the aisles. You might have seen them when walking in. So when the time comes, you can line up behind the mic and ask our speaker your questions. If you have your phone on you, which I assume you do, just put in Do Not Disturb, and this session will be recorded, so it'll be available to you after the show. All right, so we have an incredible animator from Riot Games with us today. He's worked on some notable projects. I'll name a few: The Boss Baby 2, The Bad Guys, Spies in Disguise, League of Legends, and Hotel Transylvania 3. And to tell you how he streamlined those projects and the process of developing them using his deep understanding of video game animation is the wonderful Alex Ferreira Simoes, senior gameplay animator from Riot Games. So please welcome him onto the stage.
Thank you so much for everyone for being here. Really nice, full room. I'm very excited to be presenting today a little bit about my workflow and a little bit of integration on gameplay animation. So, like Robert just presented, I'm a senior gameplay animator at Riot Games. I'm currently working on League of Legends, but I do work a little bit also on 2XKO that will be released sometime soon. So I was on the cinematic team there, and now I'm back on the cinema and gameplay team at League of Legends. And today, I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to go over today, the League of Legends style. I just want to show a little bit of how I personally approach. There are different workflows inside the team. So I'm going to show a little bit of my workflow approaching League of Legends. And then I'm going to go over one implementation project that I did through Animation Flow. And I'm going to go over the Maya Unreal integration to have like a seamless workflow where you can go back and forth between Maya and Unreal and implement properly your animation. Cool? Everyone good? If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the end, but you can always like interrupt me if it's like something like, oh, but actually I didn't understand this. Feel free. It's going to be a very relaxed presentation. It's not going to be, it's going to be just a conversation. So League of Legends. For those who doesn't know the game, so the players, they control unique champions. We focus a lot on champion's personality. Every champ has to be very unique on League of Legends. So that's our main challenge, like how to create a unique and character that is going to reason for like 10, 15 years. Like League of Legends is 15 years old, and the characters are still very unique and specific. And they have like, all of them have like distinct abilities, and the gameplay and the strategy influences on each different ability. And the animation helps us to like make this more clear. And the team is like a team-based game, like 5v5. You have the different lanes, different types of champs, and that's where we can push our animation. So on League of Legends, we use stylized animation. So we don't use any motion capture or any other type of like AI capture, motion capture, cleanup. We don't use any of this. Everything is hand key stylized animation. And this is a choice made by Riot because we want to make distinct and memorable aesthetics for the champs, the character differentiation, so we can have like different proportions, and some of them be more cartoony, more realistic, heavier, lighter, etc. And also for the visual appeal for the game. If everything is too realistic, I believe we have about 170 champs right now. If everything is realistic, there's so many ways a human can move in a realistic way, so we can exaggerate proportions and exaggerate at the way they perform the actions. Just a very quick overview of like what is realistic animation, what is stylized. Realistic animation, we focus a lot on like the lifelike representation, so it has to be like all the nuances of the face, all the like physicality, micro movements, everything very real-world appearance. And there are many games who uses this as their method of delivery, which is totally fine, like we see the examples. And the stylized animation usually emphasizes more creativity, artistic expression, allow you to be more unique about your character and make some silly stuff like we're seeing on the GIFs shown there. And we have like TFT on the side and League of Legends as example. And we have The Last of Us on the left of the screen. So you can see there's like a very big difference, but it's also a different approach for each one of them. So now, this is just the intro, just to get it out of the way. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about fundamentals of stylized animation, in my opinion. So that's going to be my workflow and just my approach to it. If you ask other animators, or if you have some experience, you can say like, oh, I do this in like a different way. But it's totally fine, because there are like many approaches, and I think it's always very valuable to know like other people's approach. So what is like a stylized animation, in my opinion? It always focuses on like the artistic representation of the movements, where to exaggerate, where to make it faster, where to make it slower, but still you maintain the weight and the physicality of the character. So actually, when you're stylizing, it doesn't mean that everything is going to be super fast and stop with no physics. You still need to maintain the physics and create the physics for this new stylized world you're creating. So in stylized animation, I prioritize the creative expression. So I always prioritize like whatever is big and whatever emphasize what I want to show in the character. Sometimes it's VFX, sometimes not animation. So I have this story. I was working on Aurelion Sol, one of the champs from League of Legends, and the ult was like a very huge meteor that was coming from the sky. And for animation, I was like, oh no, it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna pull from the sky. I made like this amazing animation, and it was like too much. For the game, we needed just like for the VFX to be the main point. So in the end, we changed for like a snap of the fingers. So I just scrap all the animation. He just gets in a pose, snap the fingers. So that's the kind of decisions we need to also understand as animators, where to support and what to push when you're pushing your animation. And exaggerated movements, on League of Legends, we exaggerate the movements to make sure everything is readable, especially with the top-down camera. It's always important for us to see like how much the character is going up and down. It changes depending on the angle. And stylized animation enhances the visual storytelling. So this just makes it prettier. So here are a few techniques that I use on my workflow. There's a few champs that I worked. The most recent was Mel. She had an adaptation for League of Legends from Arcane. So I was the only animator responsible for her. So I was responsible from ideation all the way to shipping, all the steps on that champ. So I took care of deciding how she's going to move, what we can bring from Arcane, what we can make new, how we can make that dress feel fluid if we're like in a low poly game with no simulation tools, how we can make sure it's still similar to Arcane, but it's like an evolution of Arcane. That's like after Arcane is over. So there are a lot of decisions that I had to make there to make sure the character fits the game, but also reminds people from the role in Arcane. And it was a very nice project because I was responsible for like every animation. So I had to go over like every animation implementation and what to put in game. So it was a pretty nice project. A few tips for me when I'm animating. The golden poses, I always make sure my main blocking poses are the most appealing and clear as possible as you can. So I spend a lot of time on my main poses. Sometimes I'm working on like the idol. I can take like 4 days for an idol. And 4 days, like idol is just like a character breathing, right? So it's basically like one pose. But I make so many versions, so many variations until I can get like a very specific, unique for the character that I read about this, the storyline. I watched like Arcane Season 1 when I started. I watched Arcane Season 2 earlier because I was working on her. I talked to the narrative team until I could get to like a nice pose that was like clear enough in terms of animation principles, like clear silhouettes, nice line of action, and nice pose, but also that makes the character very unique and specific. That is like the main thing that we always focus, because it's easy to make a character just like, okay, the character is breathing in game, and everyone just gonna put like, okay, put like a fighting stance and up and down. So that is gonna be like the most basic. So you start thinking like, okay, what if the character had a fight when he was young and one arm is hurt, so this arm is always gonna be a little bit more back. And the more you keep getting deep in your character personality, the more you're gonna add for your poses. I personally tend to animating pose-to-pose animation for League of Legends because I focus so much on the main poses that I prefer just having like my attack pose very clear, my anticipation pose very clear, my idle pose very clear, my walk pose very clear. So I work on those poses so much that when I go to spline, for all of those who are animators here, you understand a little bit of the workflow, and we're gonna talk about it too. So whenever I go to spline, those poses are very strong. So I don't need to worry too much about readability or character being specific because I work on like all the main poses. So this helps on stylized animation because you can actually push more of like the line of action, push more of the silhouette, push more of the character personality. And for League of Legends, the timing is very sharp. The animation is very snappy, but at the same time, it's snappy, but it feels realistic. So sometimes we use like 2-3 frames animating 30 FPS, but you still feel like the character has weight because of the resolution. And that's what I want to talk here on timing and spacing. So for stylized animation, it's important to make the timing snappy, but you can't just make everything snappy. The character's going to be feeling too light. So on the example that I'm showing here, on this side here, you see how she goes down very fast. It's just blinking. But then we have a resolution time where the cloth is just waving, and then she's getting up slower, putting the dress to the side, and returning to the idle pose. So that's where you can play with the rhythm of your shot and the contrast of the timing. So that gives the stylized feel of you can do a transition in like 1-2 frames, but then you do this recovery in like a second and a half. Because what I see the most on my students is like, you do the action, and then you try to match the idle pose, and it has like the hitch, and then the idle is breathing. You don't resolve this action to go back to idle. So you do like a strong punch, and then you just come back here, and it just feels like it's hitting, it doesn't resolve. It's snappy, it's nice, but it doesn't resolve the right way. Understanding spacing is extremely important, and that's what's gonna convey your weight. Because if you spend more time on the hang time, it's gonna convey, it's like, this is a bouncing ball exercise pretty much on the GIF on the left. It's just like a bouncing ball holding a longer hang time and then resolving into the other position. So spacing, super, super important, and always make sure to blend into natural movement. On the other GIF on the right where she's blending to walk, that is our challenge because the game is instant. So anytime you're playing the game, you're gonna cast a spell or do an action, and the character is gonna start walking. How do you make it interesting enough, and how do you make it blend in a way that is gonna work? And that was like the challenge and the solution I came up for this blend, for example. This is the ult from Mel, by the way. So you see like she goes down, the same spell, like she casts, like it has a time that she's getting this magic sphere from the sky, and then she goes down. With this down, instead of just blending back to walk, what I chose to do was she steps down, bounces down, flips, and then lands into the walk. And it has an exaggerated hang time when she starts the walk. With that, I created a little bit more contrast, and I created this sense of weight. So the character is like bouncing down, holding on top, and then starting to walk. So that's where I can sell this weight instead of the character just like going down and starting to walk. That is gonna feel weightless because she's releasing all this energy down and all this power. She can't just like come up and start walking. And if she can do that, it's not gonna be responsive enough in game because in game the character just starts moving. As soon as you click, the character just starts moving. So you need to figure out how you can do this blend, we call the blend time and the blend clip to make sure it's feeling like heavy and weighty enough. I always think about the gameplay aspects because the importance of the game feel. A lot of times we worry too much about the animation, and then when we're playing the game, it's just like, oh no, but that sucks to play. I don't like playing it. I'm taking too long to anticipate. I'm holding the character too long. I just want to play it. So always think about that, like the feedback of your actions. Especially when you're developing your own game, think about like, do I really need to anticipate for 18, 20 frames, or can I do in 12? Is that going to reply better? Or should I anticipate for longer because that's going to hold the character longer and then there's a room for the enemy to attack? So you always think about those things and talk with your gameplay designer. We collaborate a lot at Riot. So I talk to the gameplay designer every week or every 2 weeks. So I'm always talking to him about like, oh, how you're thinking about this, how you think we can solve this problem, and etc. And clarity in gameplay is the main thing. Like I said on the Aurelian Sol example, sometimes it's not about animation. Sometimes you can simplify your animation, make a strong pose, and make sure you can deliver a nice VFX, sound effects, and that is gonna sell what you need. And that's what we need for the other departments. For example, here we have the recall on this GIF, and you see like the character's just like is not doing anything really, and then it's just supporting VFX on putting these effects on top. And here's another example of like how I work on League of Legends. I like working on the character in all angles. I don't use like the top-down camera on my view. I make sure it's working for every angle. I make sure I'm putting the character around, like tumbling around to see everything, and then I see how it works in game. This dress was something else to animate. We're gonna talk about this later. So this is the section that I wanna talk about, a little bit of my tips and tricks for League of Legends and some of my workflow. But now I want to show a little bit like, let's actually do something that you guys can also take it home. Because at Riot, we have a very good tool for exporting our game, like for the game engine. We can just click a button, it's going to save a special format from Riot. And then we can just bring on our engines, like Riot Engine is the engine. It's not even like Unreal or Unity that are like the most famous engines in the available. So everything is a little bit too specific to Riot. So you click a button, everything is there. You type a name, and then it's showing game. So that doesn't help if I show you guys how to do that. That's why I brought this project that I'm doing with Animation Flow called A Story Adventures. So this is a third-person game that takes place in old Greek Roman mythology. The main character is Astoria, as you see there. A strong hero character. She used the sword and the magic to defeat the enemies. And the assignment that I want to go over with all of you today is create a finisher. So the finisher is going to be, we're in gameplay, we're going to press a key, it's going to blend into a cinematic camera, we're going to control this animation and this camera in Maya, and we're going to blend back into gameplay. So if that everyone's good? Thumbs up. Great. Then let's just dive in on this, because I think this is the most interesting part. Like this is my personal workflow, and that project that I did it at home, like it's a personal project. So how do I actually start? It's very similar what I do at Riot. I don't do it different if I'm like teaching or if I'm working or if I'm doing by myself. I always follow the same process because I think it's like, for me, it's like the process that works. If I skip one part of this process, it always like I get more notes. I'm just like, it's not quite there yet. So first thing, I get a reference board. First thing is like, okay, I'm going to do a finisher. The character has a sword. The character is a strong character, and it's gonna be like swinging a sword. I got a few references here on Pinterest. Mixed artists. The only one I can credit here is like creators from God of War, so it's Santa Monica, but the other ones I was just browsing on Pinterest. And I keep browsing. I usually create a private board for each project that I'm working, and I add like a bunch of references there. I never work anything without a reference. It's like super rare. I always like, I'm gonna start something like, okay, let's start getting some reference. I remember something that I watched, something that I played, and then I just start with a reference. And here it's our project. Just a quick overview of how the game is. So we have the locomotion. We have this object in the middle that is like just the triangle with this cylinder I just created. And we have the gameplay working. We have like a 3-combo attack. And let me play it again. And you see like the character is walking, the character is running. We have like all the implementations. So this is simulating a third-person game. The camera is following the character behind. we have like this credit for one of my students. This project was one of the students that did the whole animation implementation. And I just said like, oh, can I use your project to do a finisher? And then he sent me the files. So my process, first thing, whenever I can, I record reference of myself. So I start thinking, our goal here is to create a finisher, right? So what is a finisher? Do I have this slide here? No, I think I don't have this slide of what is a finisher for copyright issues. So for those who played before, like Titanfall, God of War, you can, finisher or execution, depending on the game you're playing, is when the character has low health, and then you can get close to this character, you click a button that it usually is highlighted on top of this character, and then you trigger a special finisher, a special execution on this character. So that is our goal to do on this project here. So we have this object that is gonna simulate our enemy, and then we're gonna click a button, and we're gonna start attacking this enemy with a cinematic camera and a cinematic animation. So the player is not gonna have any input, you're just gonna watch. First thing I do is record reference. This is the old reference room at Riot. They transform it into a gym with some trash on the back, unfortunately. But basically, and that's just a gym. But basically, I go to an open space. Whenever I record a reference, I like going somewhere that I feel comfortable because it is hard to record reference. And if you're like somewhere too public or something, it's not comfortable. I'm not comfortable like just recording. Go to the street, go to a park. I find it weird, so I like going to like places that I can at least feel comfortable. I try to get props that I can at least like get a feel of what I'm swinging. This is just like not as heavy, but not as light. At Riot, we have some props, so we have the sword, and then at the gym, I just got like one of the bars, wasn't too heavy, and I just start like playing around with the reference. So, okay, what the character can do. Maybe she can start like hitting it, and then maybe she can like stab it later, or maybe like a jump and spinning. So I just start exploring. Reference I use as reference. I do not rotoscope my reference. I don't try to get to the perfect reference to just copy the poses there. I'm just thinking like, when I watch this, I think it's like very interesting, like the way I'm changing the hands here. So I'm always watching for those small details. So if you see the way I'm changing the hands right here to get this grip, and I see like line of action is very clear. I believe this is the laser pointer. Yeah. So the line of action here is very clear. The way we have this holding the sword, and here on the swing, also like very strong like anticipation pose. And I'm not like the most athletic person. Like I don't do this for, like I never swing a sword like professionally or anything, just for reference. So you don't need to like actually, and of course I go on YouTube, I go on like reference boards, but it's good to just feel like how your body is moving on these times. And I thought about it like, oh, what if the first swing, it gets stuck on the character and then she has to kick it to take the sword back because the sword is heavy, the sword is big. So like, oh, what if the sword gets there and then you have to kick it? So that was like another try. This, I put this here because I thought it was so interesting. I did this motion here. I can't go forward. But you see, I'm gonna go twice to hit the cube. And on both times, I do the exact same mechanics. I could only see there was a different take because of the overlap of my shoelaces. That's like how exact they are. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That means that the mechanics of this jump really goes like 1-2 steps. So that's what I'm watching when I'm working on these references. And then I jump into a layout pass. So a layout, I try to start with my game camera. So I start with the third-person camera here. I start with the idle pose, and I just start playing around with like, what would be this camera? With some poses from the character. So you see like, let me play it again. So you see how the camera goes a little bit to the side to stage the character a little better. and then the character jumps exaggerated, like we're stylized and we're exaggerating, so there's like a higher jump, there's like a long hang time. The sword gets stuck in there, there's the kick, final stab, and then the character goes back to idle. So here's like my first layout pass. I look at this. Sometimes I go back after this layout. I go back. I record a reference following these beats. It depends on the shot. If I can record, I'll just go back to the reference and like, okay, now I know my camera is gonna be here. I'm gonna put my camera close to where it's gonna be, and I'm gonna try to do like the same actions, just to see how it feels, the rhythm and the flow. And sometimes I just like, okay, I think I have enough information on my reference just to use some parts. And from here, I go to my first blocking pass. Like I said, I spend a lot of time on the poses. So you see here, I didn't spend a lot of time on the poses because the hands are broken there in the end. But you see some of the poses, it has the main line of action, it has a good silhouette. I'm just trying to get the main feel of this animation. Just with the main poses, this is where I usually show a friend, a colleague. I don't show my supervisor yet at this point. I just show a colleague and say like, hey, how do you feel about this? So up to here, I'm just like, I'm getting reference, reading about the character. First, reading about the game, reading about the character, getting reference online, recording my own reference. All of this is without even touching any 3D software. I didn't even open Maya when I did like those 3 first steps. Then I go to Maya, I know what I want to do. I know what my game is. I know who my character is. I know a little bit of like, what can I do? So then I go to Maya and I start like creating the layout. I only focus on like cinematography, cameras, rule of thirds, making sure that the camera lens, like it's a tighter lens, it's a wider lens. I try to use like all those different camera tricks. And then I go to the blocking where I focus on the main poses. Then we go to a blocking plus. Blocking plus where I start putting a little bit more information. You see, even like the first pose here is feeling better already. But now I have a little bit more information. I added like a little end piece there where she's like stepping on the head. I felt like the rhythm will get better. So you still have room to add. But here's where I'm adding actual more information to my blocking. So this is where I show my supervisor, like, hey, this is what I'm presenting. What do you think about this? One very common question that I can just, if you're thinking about it, like, oh, how long does it take for you to do this? I'm sure someone thought about asking this. Usually, my reference, I work a little bit fast. So first half day, let's think 8 hours day. You get at home, we get at work in the morning or start work in the morning and finish at 6 p.m., like 9 p.m. to 6 p.m. So first half of the day, I familiarize with the assignment. So it's like, oh, a finisher, this is the game, this is the character. So I have 4 hours for that. The second half of the day, I go after reference and I record reference. So I have 4 hours to just browse the internet for references and record myself for references. So that's one day. My layout and first blocking is usually gonna take 1 to 2 days because I like to get the right camera. When you have like a blank canvas, it's really hard to get like a nice camera, get some nice poses. So that's gonna take like 1 to 2 days. From my blocking to blocking plus, usually take about a day, half a day, depending on how much you put in your main blocking. And then when I go to spline polish, that can take up to like 3 days to forever. Because the animation will never finish, you just need to deliver. So if the game is gonna ship in 2 years, it's gonna take me 2 years of polish. If it's gonna ship tomorrow, I have 1 day to polish. But as long as you follow those first steps, the animation is gonna feel good and it's gonna be good because we have the specificity of the character, we have everything is gonna work, and then you're just gonna refine, you're gonna keep refining forever. So the next step here, it's our first spline pass, I believe. Yeah. First spline pass, and you see it's just putting together. I didn't even work on the constraints or anything. So I put together the idle in the end, so the character properly blend into the idle. And I start just like splining it out, keeping in mind what we just talked about. Sharp timing, strong poses, rhythm. So when the character is fast here, there's like a good time of recovery, exaggerated hang time on this jump. And this jump, remember that I recorded reference, I told like two of the reference felt like the same, but it were different takes. And it's what I'm using here. And this part is feeling very like organic in the motion. And exaggerated hang time for the sword. The sword here, the way is just like getting stuck to this cube, and etc. So then we keep going, we keep moving forward for the, what step is this one? I think it's like a first polish step. It feels like the same. It's just, oh, this one, so this one is an experiment that I was doing. I even forgot I put this one here. Because the ending here, I thought about like, oh, what if like she takes the sword and then steps back in? So takes the sword and steps back. So I wanted to try it out to feel like maybe she's taking the sword too fast. And then after trying, I did like, this is like a spline blocking pass. It didn't take me too long. But as you see here, I was like, oh, that would be cool. Like she takes it, looks at the enemy, and then walks forward. And for me, that feels really cool. But then when I was playing the game, I was just like, oh, this is taking so long. Like we killed it already. Like, let's just go. So that was like, it's always good to, even if you have something ready, try it out, see how it feels. Don't be so passionate and attached to your idea. It can change all the time, and it changes all the time, unless you're the game director. Not is gonna be exactly the way you want. And even when you're the game director, it's not gonna be the way you want because everyone has like a different input. So just be open to change it, and be open, like even if you like something, like, okay, I can try it out. And I try like, oh yeah, it didn't work. If you really think your idea is better than someone else's comment, you just prove it out. Just make sure you can prove it, like, no, this is clearly better than this. And that's what I was a little, like experimenting a little bit here. I was like, yeah, this is really cool. Visually, as an animation piece, if I were to put on my demo reel, I'll polish this up and it will be really cool. As a gameplay piece, when I'm playing, it's cool, but I don't like the way it feels because I want to just keep going with the game. And here we have, did I skip one? Let me check. No, that's it. And here we have implemented in-game. So everyone's excited about this part. So we're gonna get close to this character. We press a key, and then we have this playing in-game and blending back to our character. And now we can continue with the character, and the object disappear. So that is like the whole workflow. So this is the final result, but of course, like how do we get to here? That's where everyone wants to know, of course. I changed the other character, we put the animation on it. So here I have this video that will be playing and I'll be talking over. If you follow this bubble, it's an eye tracker. And I'll be pausing sometimes. So what I'm doing here, this is Unreal Engine 5, for those who are not familiar. So I'm exporting from Maya, bringing in Unreal Engine, and creating a level sequence. So I created a level sequence inside Unreal Engine, and I trigger this level sequence as I get close to the character. So if you look here, you can see on the level sequence, on the top you have the camera cuts. Below it, you have our character, so we imported our character in-game, so I'm importing this to this sequence. And then I'm importing the Maya camera. The trick to import the Maya camera, because this talk is about like workflow hacks, tips, and tricks. The tip to import the Maya camera, you animate in Maya. So what I do is I create the camera in Unreal, export an FBX to Maya. It's gonna come on a location. I import this location in Unreal. I animate the camera. It has to be the exact same name in Outliner as it is in Unreal. And when you import, it's gonna import the keys into your sequencer timeline. And here I also import the FBX of the animation. So as you see here, when I select the camera, it's showing me the camera on the preview. And I can tweak. I can also animate the camera in Unreal. Yes, I can animate the camera in Unreal. But here I'm showing that I'm importing this camera as an FBX inside the level sequencer. And when I scrub, you can see that it's scrubbing in Unreal. One trick that I had to do here was to match the positions. And as you see here, when I select, you see how my eye is going just back and forth, like content browser, what I'm gonna do now. So I select my character, and if you see here, I'm getting this location in worlds, and I'm bringing this location to Maya, because one thing that all the big studio tools, they do all of this automatic, but when I was doing it at home, I was just like, well, why is this not matching? Why is the characters like far away? Because what happens is, and I'm gonna let it play, your character lives on the capsule in Unreal, and you move this character around in the capsule. When you wanna play something, what's gonna happen is, it's gonna play, if you export from Unreal away from 0, it's gonna be exported away from the capsule. So your capsule is gonna be here, and your character is gonna be far away because you're not in 0. So what's gonna happen? We need to put the capsule on the exact location. So that's what I'm doing right here. When the event starts, I'm setting the actor location rotation. Again, I'm not a game designer, so this is the way I found to make like a presentable way of my work. Of course, a game designer will have like other tips, but I'm setting my character location rotation, and I'm bringing this to Maya. So whenever I bring the camera, I'm bringing the same X, Y, Z location rotation, translation rotation. And then here, I'm just going over the blueprint. I need to disable the input, create the level sequence, and then enable back the input after we're done. And it is gonna play. This is the play node. And now, if we're here in Maya, and this actually, Robert's gonna be mad at me, but I have Maya open here. So I wanted to show this in Maya real quick, because I think it's more interesting. So, and now you see my Maya. Yeah, so I have my character here. As you see on the perspective, my 0 is right here, and the character is like all the way over somewhere, there. And here, what I did was, I have the location rotation of this character matched to this specific position. My animation starts on frame 11, and here we can see in the viewport the final animation. So we can play it, I can tweak it, this is gonna be exactly what it's gonna be showing in Unreal. When I need to export this, what needs to happen? I'm gonna get the main of my character, and I'm gonna actually bring this back to 0. So that's why I start on frame 11, because I saved this position here. And then on frame 11, I'm just gonna 0 this out. And the same for the enemy. I have the enemy here, I'm gonna go on outliner, and I have the group, I'm just gonna 0 this out. And now, it's gonna sound weird, but you see like how the characters are here? If I play it, it's gonna be playing one to one side, the other one to the other side. It doesn't matter because they're constructing Unreal on their capsule, so it's just gonna play exact the animation we're seeing there. I'm just bringing them back to their root, exporting it, and then putting them back where I need to animate. So that was the main tip that I wanted to share about this specific. And root motion, if you're not familiar, take a look online. But also, I align the root motion so my character root moves to the character, so when I blend back to the gameplay, the root is aligned with the idle. So back to the presentation slides. All right. That was just a quick, because it's easier to show than this video is a little bit hard to understand this process. So basically what I'm doing here, and you're gonna see again, I have my camera in this position, I have the character away from 0, and then I bring it back to the capsule. Everyone's doing good? Clear? Kinda clear, right? And now I can just export. As soon as I did this whole setup, now I can just work in Maya, not even worry, because I know it's gonna be one-to-one in Unreal. And that's gonna look just like I want it. So I have, like, starting on frame 10, I have the character on this position, and then when I need to export, I bring the character to 0, export it, and then bring it back to the location that I got in Unreal to work on it. That's what the tools usually they do on the big studios. They do that for you. So when you open your shot, you just start animating, everything is there, and then you click on the export, like Riot Exporter, for example. Everything just goes how it should. But when I was doing, like, I just want to share a little bit because I was frustrated. I was at home, I was like, oh, I need the Riot Exporter, but how can I do it? And the most important thing I want you guys to get from this presentation is like how to go after those solutions, like how to break it down, like, okay, what is happening, how can I push it? Like, what do I need to do to get to this result that I want? Instead of just saying, that's how they do it, and I don't know how to do it. So here I'm just saying that I'm using root motion. Make sure you use root motion on your clips. And the same with the character. If you don't use root motion, the character is going to play, and it's going to come back to 0, so you're going to have the character on the point it started. And then when we play, we have the whole finisher. In the end, I bind an event to the end of the finisher where it destroys the other character, so the character just disappears. And that's our finisher. And let me come to the conclusion. So what do we need to do? First, it's understanding your task. You're working on an attack, a combo, a finisher. Like, what is the main output? What do you need to do for your task to be successful? Then, immerse yourself in reference. If possible, you record your own. Don't get hurt. Don't try to do anything crazy. Some people try it. It's not going to look as good as if you get something on YouTube. If you're not, like, if you're trying to do something crazy, you can get hurt, and it's not going to look as good as you could find online. So try not to get hurt, but try to record yourself as much as you can, just to feel it out on your body. It is very helpful. Always pay attention timing and weight. Everyone who always gets like a demo review with me, or like, oh, can you take a look at my shot? I was like, oh yeah, take a look on the timing and the weight. It's always the same because it's like universal. I'm still studying my timing and weight because it's something that is always going to be something that makes your animation look better. Keep in mind the implementation responsiveness, like we just talked about, like that last part, like, oh, I don't need this, I can just cut it. And I cut probably a day of work that I did the other blocking, and it's not a problem. You can just cut it. What is important is to keep the implementation and the gameplay aspect, the responsiveness. And make sure to name and organize your file properly. That's very important. I open some files from other people, and you're like, oh, where is it? It's not from other people, it's my files. I open, it's like, oh, where is it? I don't remember what I did on this character. People are usually very organized in games, and it's something that I'm getting better at it. And there are a few tools in Maya, native tools in Maya, that you can, like, I create bookmarks for my animations, so I know like where the attack is, where the idle is, where the blend is, and Maya can create the bookmarks. And with the bookmarks in Maya, I go on Game Exporter, and I can put like just those values. So this is very important. Cool. Before my last here is going to be about one question that I always get from every presentation, everyone that I talk with, like a little bit of an AI discussion, like, oh, is AI going to take our jobs? Is AI a concern for animation? So I have a few questions that I made, and I've a little bit of my own perspective. Again, it's just my perspective. Maybe like some people know better. But is AI a concern for animation? In my opinion, no. I don't think it's a concern at the moment. Maybe in the future, maybe in like 3 or 5 years, it might be a concern, but it's not a concern. I think it will be a tool like motion capture was when they started. They said like, oh, motion capture is going to end animation, just end up creating a lot more jobs. I think it's going to be a tool in the future for us to use and be more productive. So for me, it's not a concern yet, but let's see how it goes in the future. I'm personally excited about it because there are several parts how AI could improve this workflow. IKFK is still a pain. Word space switch, constraints. Like the constraint of the sword took me longer than blocking the whole shot because I had to switch from one hand to the other hand, and then I need to make like a group and locators, et cetera, et cetera. So if I could have AI improving my workflow, that would be like amazing. And there are like a few things. I'm involved with the development department at Riot, and I'm pushing for AI to be supporting us to be more creative, like faster. For example, one of the tools that we just developed was on our studio library. When you paste an animation, it pastes on the word space of your scene, so you don't need to convert. So if someone animated in headspace and then you have like chest or global, it's just gonna paste and it's gonna align everything for you. And it's not AI-driven, but it's like a tool that helps on your workflow. And I believe in the future, AI-driven tools will make our workflow much better and more efficient. The current AI-driven tools for game animation, the only one I know is Cascadeur, which they've been out forever. Now they're branding themselves as AI tool, but they're always being like physics-driven tool, which is very cool. There's a space for this, but it does always look like Cascadeur animation. It looks very realistic. It's a little bit hard to stylize. Maybe in the future, we're gonna have similar tools where they're like presets of stylized animation based on certain styles. Maybe you'll be able to train your own AI to be on your style. But at the moment, that's the only one that I personally know. I know there's some, like, Autodesk has Wonder Dynamics as well, but it's not, like, for the workflow, it's still not as useful for, like, the day-to-day workflow in stylized animation. In realistic animation, I think there will be a lot more tools for, like, easier motion capture. And my hope, like I just say, hopes for the future is just, I just want to worry about the fun part. And I feel like right now it's like half fun part, half is just like, I want to die, I don't want to continue this. And because it's like switching and all that stuff. Cool. And that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. And thank you so much. If you have any questions, we have the microphones. Can you just go over to the microphone? And we need to wrap it soon, so I will be outside. You can also stop me. I will be in the conference like all the time, so stop me anytime. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I have a question. So when I see your layout, your timing is extremely different compared to your video reference. So I was wondering, where does your timing come from?
Yeah, so my reference, I just get, so the question was about like how my reference is very different, the timing from my animation, where my timing comes from.
Yes.
So basically, the reference I use for like mainly poses and nuances, I don't use for timing. As soon as I created the poses, I start playing with the timing in Maya. So what you favor, and I was thinking about like, I need to favor a pose, I need to make something faster, something slower. So it's more like in Maya and watching like references. References, not my video reference, but references of the style that I'm working on, different games, different films, and things like that. So I don't get the timing from my reference, I just get the poses and the feeling of like the arcs and things like that. Cool?
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just got a quick question about comparing Maya's animation with Blender's animation. Are you familiar with Blender's animation at all?
So I need to repeat the questions, but the questions about like Maya and Blender animation. I have not animated in Blender yet. I did like a small test, but for me, in terms of animation, all the softwares are pretty similar. I've animated in like 4 or 5 different softwares already, and they're all pretty similar to me. I feel like in a month I could animate in Blender the same, but the tools will be a little bit different, like where to find stuff.
Just curious about that.
Yeah, both tools, like I think animation-wise, you can animate like even in papers, like it's fine, like whatever tool. When I joined DreamWorks, it was Primo, their own animation software, and I had to learn in like 2 weeks. We have a 2 weeks training, and then you just learn a whole new software. And another freelance I did in Softimage, I had to like learn the whole software in like a couple weeks. So animation is one of the lucky areas where it doesn't matter too much the software. I know Unreal has animation now. A lot of people are migrating to it, and I feel like it's going to be pretty similar to get the same result.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
Of course. Hey.
I'm just wondering, when you're working on a character and all the cycles of animation, obviously, you know, for some characters you have walk, jump, run, or something like that, and then some of them you have like dozens, even up to 100 cycles. When you have something like that, do you keep it all in the same file or do you break it up?
So the question is about keeping the animations in the same file when you have like multiple files. I like keeping what is relevant on the same file. So for example, when I'm working on attack, I keep like attack blend to idle, blend to run fast, blend to crouch, or attack, like jump into attack, something like this. Whatever is relevant. Some animators like to split everything in a different file. Some animators like me, I like keeping what is relevant. I tend to not keep everything on the same file because it starts getting like too complicated to navigate the timeline. So only what's relevant.
Hi, Alex. I'm Conjure, a 3D animator, and I noticed that you mentioned that when you transfer like Maya animation into Unreal, their position will be doesn't match, and you just freeze out some of the keyframe in Maya. I'm curious about have you tried like a addictive layer in Unreal, which will like you don't have to change the keyframe of individual controller, just use addictive layer to put the placement to adjust the animation as a whole in Unreal.
So yeah, the question about changing the animation in Unreal after you export from Maya.
Yeah. Did you use addictive addiction layer or what?
So I use additive layers. So if I have a walk or a run or something, I do use the layers to add personality. I don't do anything in Unreal. I usually do everything in Maya, and I export it back to Unreal. So I put the layers in my Maya scene, and when I'm exporting, I export with certain layers on or off. So I can turn it on like, oh, there's the walk with personality 1, walk looking to the sides, and then I just toggle the layers and I export it. And that's like, those are additive layers, instead of just redoing the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, that's my
The answer? Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Ethan Fernandez, and your talk was very inspiring. Makes me want to go animate. But my question was, I've seen on ArtStation on some portfolio pieces like how much the character stretches in League of Legends because of top-down. I was just wondering, do you find it hard to like implement like personality in your animations when like the stretching's a bit weird?
Yes, I find it hard. So the question is like, it's hard because it's very stylized, so the character stretches a lot. Yes, it is challenging. It took me a little bit of time coming from feature film where it's like a little bit more grounded to like a very stylized. And I think what I learned was to make sure you know when to stretch, not just like randomly stretch, and not make the character just made of like bubble gum or something. So you know when to stretch and you know when to hold, like hold a strong pose. For example, in the Mel example, we're holding a very strong pose when she's jumping, and there's like no stretching there. The stretch is only on the way down. And my style is a little bit less stretchy than other things in League of Legends. So there's a little bit of room. It depends on the champ you're working, like how much it can stretch or not. But finding the personality, I think the main thing is like on the main poses, and the stretch is just how you go from one pose to the other.
And yeah, thank you. I just had another quick question. Like, do you find it hard from like transitioning like already animation into like another golden like frame, your next frame of your next animation?
I don't find it hard because of this experience, but the feeling, like if you work in pose to pose, you can have this feeling of like very pose to pose animation, like just it's one pose and then the other pose. You just need to pay attention to your lead and follow. What is leading and what is following, and making sure this is flowing properly. Cool?
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Hi, Alex. Thank you for the talk. I have a few questions. How often do you have the opportunity to use straight ahead animation over pose to pose animation? And what Maya plugins do you consider to be essential to character animation, such as Studio Library or CGM tools for character rigging?
So the first question about pose to pose and straight ahead animation, right?
Yes.
It depends on the shot for me. It depends on how I wake up. I wake up with the left leg is straight ahead. The right, it doesn't really matter much. It depends on the shot. Some shots, like if the hand is like casting the power, for example, and it's very important the flow of the hand. Sometimes I do it straight ahead where I want to get the hand first and then I go with the body. And sometimes I just like want the strong poses. It really varies on the shot, but my workflow is a little bit more pose to pose because when I did purely straight ahead, I was getting a lot of notes on the poses not being so appealing. So I was just like, okay, I need to go back and like fix the poses. And the second question was?
The second question is, which Maya plugins would you consider to be essential to character animation, such as Studio Library?
Yeah, I think Studio Library, Animbot. Animbot for me is like one, we have a Riot, I have it at home, and I think it's one of the main tools for animators. Studio Library, and I think that's it, and shortcuts. I like setting my own shortcuts. I have the shortcut that I use the most, which is funny, is delete keyframe. I put a key that I just click and delete the keyframe on the timeline, because right-click and deleting takes too long for me. So like those things are what helps. But Animbot and Studio Library, it's all I need really.
Thanks for the info. Thanks.
No, thank you. Hi.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Dylan Fernandez, the brother to Ethan Fernandez. We both are big fans of your work.
Oh,
I just had a question. I had two questions. The first, do you have a preference when it comes to FK and IK? I know a lot of people, like some people just like to primarily use one or the other. Like how do you go about that? Or is it like per animation or?
Yep. So the question about IK, FK, I get that a lot. I'm a very FK person. I always use FK. I prefer, sometimes when I know the shot is gonna have something like it presses here and the character moves, that I know it's IK, I still block everything in FK and then I convert it later. But that's my preference. I'm like very FK person. And some shots you need the IK, like if I have my hands here and I'm like I'm walking around, of course I'm gonna do an IK. But I always start at FK. That's just the way I feel like it makes more sense for me.
Thank you. Yeah, and then my second question, recently I've been working, I made like this weapon that has a rope, and I was looking at some people's animations with chains where they'll have the chains kind of extend from the character in a dynamic way. I know this is kind of hard to transport to a game engine because you're making stuff on the fly like that. Would you pick between making a tool that could kind of do this or just stretch out the rope? Because they're supposed to like grapple onto a character, right? Or like an enemy.
Oh, that's tricky. I feel like the best way would be doing in engine, like importing the weapon as a different prop, rigging in there, and like importing the animation in there, so it has the proper collisions. Mm-hmm. But this will be like a game designer job.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We have 1 more minute, so we can finish the question. Oh, we don't have more time? No, we don't have more time. We can finish the questions outside. I will be there, and I can answer for you guys. But thanks again.